Hi, everyone.
Hi, Michelle.
Thanks for joining us today to have a conversation in honor of International Women's Day on March 8th. What does the theme Inspire Inclusion mean to you?
I think for me, Inspire Inclusion means leading by example. As a leader, really, blazing that path so those coming up behind you or around you really know what it means to have inclusivity all around.
Rise while you climb.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the word for inspire. It's really about trying to create positive energy for people that will strive to do creative things. And when you take that definition of that word and you partner it with inclusion, you can think about really what a world could be different.
How do you find your balance between yourself, your family, your friends, and your career? Who wants to kick us off?
I don't know, is it because balance is so
It's
hard
such
to
a-
achieve and maybe it's not attainable? I think we all feel that, right? I think in various parts of your career, you give to one, you give to your career, you might have to step back to give something to your family. But I think at the very end of it all, I look back and think I was the best at various parts, like the best employee, the best mom, the best spouse, and that the people surrounding me understand that, that give and take is tough.
For this one, I always think about you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time, right?
I think it's constantly moving. At least for me, there's no balance per se. It's integration of work and life, and it takes different shapes and different forms.
When I had my first daughter, someone told me you can't pour from an empty cup. So really making sure I was the number one priority, because if I wasn't, whole, then my daughter wouldn't be taken care of. It's hard to say no as a woman, but being able to, set those boundaries is very important.
And I know we've all heard the analogy so many times. You have the glass ball and the plastic ball. Sometimes you have to release the plastic ball. It'll keep bouncing in the background to focus on your family. That might be a glass ball at that moment in time. And sometimes they can be interchangeable, and maybe your family will become the plastic while your career becomes the glass with an important item that you're working on.
Yeah, it's hard though, because when you're in the moment, you don't necessarily know which one can
Exactly.
be which. And so that reflection, but giving yourself that bit of grace, that bit of forgiveness to know that we are going to make mistakes. Women haven't had that many examples. It's only in the last, say, 50 years that we've started to strive towards bigger things in industry. And so to try to find your voice, to try to find the path that feels authentic to you and how you do things, there's not necessarily an example of you yet. You might be the first, you might be the only. And so that sense that you have to continue to try is the most important part.
How can we attract more women to the male-dominated fields that we work in?
I think is to have representation at all the different levels within an organization so that there's someone you can identify with.
And storytelling, right? Sharing the stories like this table exactly is doing. That storytelling around what women can accomplish is really important for everyone to hear.
In the beginning of my career, there weren't a lot of women of influence around. So having that representation and actually proving to the next generation coming up behind us that it's doable. You could be a woman, you can be a working mom, you can have the career, maybe just not all at the same time, but it's definitely doable. So having that inspiration. Got some great women within this company and love to see more.
What does an empowered woman look like to you?
You're seeking out what you want to change, right? You recognize what isn't working or what isn't good for you, and that you're allowing yourself to pull in resources or to make a difference by changing it up, to having that bit of boldness, let's say, that goes along with that, which can be really hard to do, which can be hard to take on, moving that agenda towards what you want it to do. But that's the essence of being empowered, right? Is that you seek out what change you want to see in the world.
I default to my favorite quote: "You wouldn't worry so much what other people thought of you if you knew how seldom they did." And one of the things that, an empowered person really behaves and acts free of being overly concerned with being judged.
I like that quote.
We need that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
We totally do. Why is it important to have more women in leadership positions?
I actually want to reframe that, and I think it's important to have women in influential positions. We've seen it for years where we've had women in management positions, but getting the women to that next level who can then influence those decisions that will make the company even more impactful, that's what I'd love to see.
I like the idea of that influence. I think of my team, I've got a team of 32, and the men that work for me, they'll never be able to say that they've never worked for a woman before. And one of my young engineers came up and said, my wife was asking about you. And I thought, what was she asking? Well, what's it like to work for a woman? And then I think, so now it's not just the people who work for me, but their spouses and their kids when they go home and they talk about their boss who's a woman, that there's another generation now that maybe hadn't heard about an engineering woman before. And for them, it won't be a big deal. Their dad worked for a woman engineer. So it's sometimes very small, bite-sized steps. And you don't even really necessarily think that you're doing it while you're doing it, and how powerful that can be.
Have you ever been the only woman in a room or at the table? And how did you find your voice?
I'm often the only woman in the room. It's changing slightly now, but even right now, my own staff, they're all male. Throughout my whole career, I've just focused on, doing a good job, being confident in my ability. And my first promotion when I was a business manager, I remember there was a male colleague of mine who said to me literally that you only got promoted because you're a woman. I remember without skipping a beat, I looked him in the eye and I said, and the reason you think like that is why you never will. And proved out to be the case. The truth is there's always going to be people that could make you second guess your abilities, but choosing to just stay focused on your own compass really has enabled me to have my voice within a male-dominated industry.
Can you share an example of how a mentor or a manager helped shape the person who you are today?
When I first started, I had a leader who was very patient, amazing listener, empathetic, and he really built a team. So coming to work was dynamic and fun because we were all trying to achieve the same goal like every shift. And we'd win some, we'd lose some, but we'd always celebrate or be supported. And if it wasn't for that individual and kind of the way that environment felt, I may have gone back to the profession of teaching, but I chose to stay because of the environment and the energy. Yep.
That's amazing.
I did have a situation when I first came back from maternity leave, and I was asked to take on a new role that was a global technical leadership role. And my immediate instinct was, how am I going to manage work-life balance? So I was a bit panicked about it, if I'm honest. But I talked to a mentor. He had been a former boss of mine, and he just asked me to sort of describe what I was most worried about. So I went through the list, and he said, all of these things you have influence over in this new role. Just do it. Just do it and make it what you want. I could actually adapt the role to what it needed to be for me, but also for the company. So I went with it and turned out to be a pivotal role in my career. So oftentimes those roles that we might be fearful about initially are those that come with greatest satisfaction and opportunities for the future. You don't have to figure it all out on day one, but have faith that you'll be able to figure it out.
All right, Jackie, as the first woman to lead General Assembly, how did it feel to walk the floor and see so many women working on the line?
So that's, I gotta not even start it over, if you will. So one of the reasons I went back to the plant when we launched was I really wanted to have an impact, not only on our employees, but our community. And we wanted to have the most inclusive workforce in the world. And we did subtle things in our hiring process that removed roadblocks that would have vetoed women being able to apply and be really considered for some of our positions within the plant. One of them was had prior manufacturing experience. By just taking that one question off, it enabled so many more people to be considered for working at our plant. And so as a result, we've got, this beautiful, diverse workforce. And when you come into the plant and you walk the floor, you can feel the impact of that. There is a different vibe. There's a different energy of the teamwork. And it's really helped us be very successful as we've launched T1 here in Oshawa.
Whenever I'm at Oshawa, I feel so proud walking the floor to see women working on the line and building class trucks.
Yep. I think the strength is having that vision. Like, it's an audacious goal, right, to put it out there. And we've got to continue across all the levels within our organization to keep challenging how we promote, how we choose, and how we provide growth opportunities for our talent so that we can get more diverse people throughout all the levels.
Jackie, that's super inspiring. We think about the challenges that we've had getting women in manufacturing. And it took just adjusting one line in the job posting. So imagine what else we could do with minor adjustments that'll open the door for more women. That's amazing.
And it is so personal because I had the chance to influence that. So, yeah.
Because the first thing they do is read our ads, right? Read the
Right.
posting. And if the language isn't inclusive or it skews one way and they take themselves out of that game, we never even get to take advantage of them. We never get to allow them to be part of our process because, you never even meet them. We all want to be part of a culture that is accepting, and culture is a huge piece of why people stay on jobs. It's why we look forward to going to work every day, because it's not just a job. You want the family piece of it. You want the passion or the emotion that came out when you answered that question, right? You want that to be, more of an everyday thing because we're inspired by where we work and the products that we make.
We were kind of talking about mentorship a little bit. Can you tell me about the mentoring that you've been doing?
I'm part of a mentor organization where they pair me up with a young woman who has a lot of potential, but maybe doesn't have access to a professional woman in her life. She's usually in high school and really kind of just needs that outside influence, maybe someone who's not a family member or a teacher. So I love it, and I was really influenced to join because I think back to maybe 16-year-old Natalie who didn't maybe have that network of professional women and didn't know where to go, and just having an outside voice to be able to say, hey, maybe, this is what you might want to consider, or university, and even the application process, right? So I love it. I love seeing these young women who have so much potential, that passion, and I'd love to be able to harness that and give it back to every woman who's in the workforce and say, remember when we were younger, this is what we were aspiring to be. So let's carry that energy forward.
I mentor in all different ways outside of GM. And university kids are so strong. They're so powerful. They've got such a sense of who they are and what they're bringing to the table. And so I want to make sure that when they get into the workforce, that they have that support necessary, because I don't think anybody's told them that they can't do it yet. And I want that to keep going that way, right? I want them to keep that confidence, because once you lose your confidence, it's really hard to regain. And so I think mentorship's really about trying to make the world a little easier for them. I've seen a reverse mentoring, right, where the younger generation's mentoring the older one. I think that is super powerful. They're bringing a set of ideas that maybe we haven't thought of before, because the world they live in is different than the way we grew up. I don't know what the world is always like. You don't always see it from their eyes. And so our opportunity is always to continue listening. When you mentor them, they teach you about yourself and about your paradigms and what you've thought of. I like working with these students because, my daughter's never going to listen to me, right? The kids never listen to what their parents want them to do. And so
Definitely not.
I have to mentor because I want this generation of young women coming up to be powerful, so that they help her find a voice and find what she needs in the world. And so it's a bit self-serving in that regard as well.
Right, and be bold. Don't wait for the mentor to come knock on your door. Find someone that you really, aspire or are influenced by, and just say, hey, can we have time, coffee chat? It'll go a long way.
And I think most you'll find is that most women want to support that next generation. So they're willing to have coffee chats, and they're willing to talk about the work that they're doing, because they want the world to be a warm place and receptive to somebody coming up. And if they had a lot of roadblocks, they want to be able to knock those down for the other people, so that the world can be better. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she says, Stephanie, when I was young, there was no such thing as female bus drivers. And I said, that's crazy. What do you mean there's no such thing? She's like, it wasn't a thing. Women were not allowed to be bus drivers. It was, a job that only a man could do. And then you think, oh, that's crazy. Of course a woman can be a bus driver. And she said, that's what it's going to be like for you, where you think there's a woman in a role that maybe has never done it before, or you're the only one in a room. Think of the bus drivers. Think of them, that you now are a generation that never even considered that women couldn't drive a bus. And I think, that's what my daughter's legacy and our kids' legacies will be, is that maybe they'll never know that a mom couldn't be an engineer, or that you couldn't be a production role model, or you couldn't be in whatever role we think we couldn't be in. And I think that's a sense of what we can do to give back to that next generation.